Hey, everybody. Welcome to this weekend edition of Digital Brand Alchemy. My name is Richard Pickett. Shell will not be here today. She had a friend who had a death in the family, and she's there for support at the funeral today. And I'm certainly going to miss her quite a bit. But nevertheless, the show must go on. I apologize. I feel like I didn't get the email out early enough today. I got stuck on a very long phone call with a client. And we were working through some pretty cool stuff. But like the whole time I was working with them, I was thinking, man, I really need to go do this email. So nevertheless, I'm glad to be here. It looks like we already have some comments coming in. Awesome. Okay, so this is from a Facebook user. So you must be in the Digital Brand Alchemy group, which is really cool. You'll notice where the video description is, if you like show all or whatever it is. So there's a link at the bottom that says, to facebook.com/StreamYard, I think. If you go and click on that, it will, the StreamYard app will ask you for permissions so that it will know your name, and then we'll know who you are. Otherwise, I'll have to go look in the Facebook group and see who you are. Or if you haven't accepted the app yet and you're in the group, no problem. You can just type your first name or whatever, so it'll show up in the comments. So it looks like Facebook user is excited about this. Have to listen to this, although my kids are off from school for the next 2 weeks. Like most of the United States, unless I hear differently, I'm expected at work. So I'm really sorry to hear that. I know some people have to continue to go to work. They got to be in the office. I was in the office all this week. And my wife, I've got something funny to show you guys. My wife kept telling me to avoid meetings and stuff like that. Finally, our corporate office, which is in Paris, sent out this thing saying you have to be a meter apart if you're going to be, talking with people, if you're going to be in a meeting. And then they gave permission for each locality to come up with their own rules for working at home and all that kind of stuff. So fortunately for us, my office decided, cool, everybody can work from home. But it was kind of painful through this past week. I was a little worried. So we will be talking about the coronavirus today. I'm the kind of guy, by the way, I hesitate to have these kinds of shows where I just hook on to the latest news and all that kind of stuff. But this is kind of unavoidable. And I think that it's something that we need to be talking about especially in relationship to what you can be doing with your personal brand and your own business. And I do want to talk about that today, because if you position yourself right, you can take advantage of this time to grow your business, not only because you'll have some downtime if you are staying at home, maybe you're still working full-time remotely at home, but you don't have the commute, which for a lot of people, that'll give you an hour plus back a day. So that's an obvious advantage that you have, but there are also some other advantages that you can position yourself with your personal brand to help other businesses and other people's companies who are having difficulties, help them continue to have success during this time. So I would like to talk about that some today. I see we've got a number of people that have hopped on. Hello, everyone. Glad to see you. Let me see if I can tell where people are dropping in from. So the group, so far, just looks like just the group. We had a couple more, but sometimes it's sketchy, spotty. If they sit there and I know they're watching, but for whatever reason, the statistics doesn't say that they're there anymore. So maybe some came in from YouTube or wherever else. So let's get started. The first thing I want to talk about is how to read statistics. I think this is very important, and I'll show you the statistics that I'm paying attention to if I can find it on here. Yes, this one. Okay, so this website, and let me send that to you guys as a comment so that you'll be able to go there as well. Be careful clicking on this link while you're watching the live. You'll end up leaving the live and kind of miss the point. So I'll go through this. This comment will still be there later, and you can always just scroll back up. So I think that Oh, you know what? That may not post into the group. I will post it into our group when we are done. Let me explain what these stats are. There are a couple of different things to look at here. Right now, this is overall cases, and I'm going to refresh just in case these numbers have changed, which, okay, they didn't change at all. So this is the overall worldwide stats. And in the beginning, it was predominantly China. And when it was just China, I was concerned that maybe we weren't getting all the facts. Now that it's out of China and it's hit other countries, I feel more confident with these numbers. And I feel like actually China's in a much better position today. We'll see that below. And I'll also show you US specific stats. If you have a specific country that you'd like to take a look at, and we could just do a little analysis together on these statistics, then just post your country where you are, and we'll take a look at it together. So I think this, like, everybody looks at total cases, and by the way, total cases are going to continue to climb. 155,000, that's a lot. It seemed like it was just 80,000 just like a week or two ago. So yes, it does look like it's climbing quite a bit, but the problem with this number is it doesn't actually tell you like how fast it's spreading or how bad it really is. It just tells you total. This number is always going to go up forever. Like, the more testing we do, even, years in the future, people will still continue to have this particular strand of coronavirus. And I expect that number to continue to go up. So that number is not really telling us a lot. We need to know other details. And this is where I think active cases, let me see if I can stop this ad, because sometimes that'll be a little irritating to always have something going on. Active cases, I think, is actually the most useful, and especially when you can view it as a graph. I know this is probably small for you guys. I'll try to zoom in some. Sometimes when you zoom in, I don't know what it is with these graphs, but they get a little wonky. But I'm hoping you guys can view this well. Let me come back and see. If you can't view the stats well, let me know. I'll zoom in a little bit more, and we'll see if it works. So active cases, you see this is back around January 22. It was really, really low. They had 563 cases. I think that's when it was just in China. So again, in the beginning, we were kind of skeptical about China, the numbers coming out of China, that maybe they weren't reporting them correctly or something. So I didn't know really what to think about it. But I did notice that over a period from January 22 to like the middle of February, it went from 500, as you see. I think the peak was right here at February the 17th at 58,000. So it went from 500 to 58,000 in almost a month. It's about 5 days shy of a full month. And that's a huge climb. But notice that once this peak was reached, like, it kind of leveled off, which is a good indication. Again, this is at the worldwide scale, but at the worldwide scale, it leveled off. This is predominantly all China at the time. And so I knew that it wasn't going to spread that much more in China. And then it began to decline, which is really cool. The problem that I knew that would happen is, as the active cases declined, then we would actually get it out in the West. So it would go into Europe, it would go into, the UK, the United States, Canada, South America, et cetera. And even though it was on a decline, it would be spreading. And sure enough, now you see it climbing back up again, because it's hit all of the rest of the nations at this time. Why is active cases more important? Or to me, the most important, because when active cases is going up, then that means that the virus is spreading faster and hitting more people faster than the people are recovering from it. So that's a really important statistic. If active cases is going down, then that means that we've curbed it. It's not spreading as fast as people are recovering. So it's starting to decline and go away. Active cases is a really great indicator. Active cases right now, 67,000. So we've hit a new peak, and I believe this will continue to go up. And I think it will continue to go up for 2 to 3 weeks. What makes me think that? Because when China started and only had, less than 1,000, it took 3+ weeks for them to get up to a peak of 58,000. before they got it under control. Hopefully, us in the United States, in Europe, UK, South America, etc. Hopefully, we're going to be a lot more proactive early. I'm really glad we've shut down schools. I'm really glad that they've called off big events and concerts and all that kind of, and all the sports has been shut down. I know it's going to hurt us for a minute, but I'm glad we're shutting down, because I feel like we could do this in less than 3 weeks if we just all kind of self-isolate ourselves. So I'm hopeful that we're ahead of the curve, and that it will be less than 3 weeks. But to me, I'm kind of braced for about a 2 to 3 week of this particular active case number to continue to climb before it levels off. So if this is worldwide indicator, a lot of people are going to want to know, what does this look like where I am? So for that, you can scroll down. There are some other stats. Let me see if I want to. Yeah, so this is actually a pretty good one as well. I'll kind of help tell you how to read it if you don't know. This is closed cases, where green means it was successful or they survived, they got better and came out of it. And the orange is an indicator that they died. In the beginning, I think this is actually, I'm glad I stopped on this one, because this is an important thing to note. You would think, like, why is it that, what's the number here? 41% of all the cases that reach an end in the beginning, why is it that they would end in death? Why is that death rate so high and the survival rate not so high? Whereas you see over time, the survival rate gets extremely high, and the chances of someone dying actually decreases. So a really smart question is, like, why is that? Why does it seem to be more deadly in the beginning than it is at the end? And the simple answer is, it's actually not more deadly in the beginning. What's really going on is no one was testing for it. You may remember that some of the first news that came out from Wuhan was all of a sudden they had these strange deaths and they couldn't explain it. So now you got this death count, but no one was being measured for who actually has the coronavirus. So they weren't actually tracking any people who tested positive and survived. So all they knew in the very beginning was, we have these death cases. And then from then they say, who were they in contact with? And they start like broadening the circle and getting in contact with their friends, family, coworkers, all those people that they would have been in contact with, and they start doing the testing. But in the beginning, the survivals are not really known, because all they know are the people who have just recently died. And as cases progress, then and the testing increases, then we get a lot more people that get tested as positive, but who have a positive outcome. So the death rate seems like it goes down. The death rate actually has stayed the same. It's just that we now know about more positive cases as we go forward. This is important because you'll see the same kind of trend with every country chart that you will look at. The logarithmics, total deaths is going to continue to go up. Again, it's kind of an indicator in that, you like when it's going straight up, that a lot of people are dying more rapidly. More deaths are happening per day or week or whatever that measurement is. And what we would want is eventually this to like trend off and go in a straight line. So that's one of the things that we're waiting to see. But these numbers will always go up. So I don't view them as helpful as active cases. And then, also the closed case outcome to see what does the actual final percentage of survivability look like. Okay, so then when we scroll down, they have a lot of really good information. It's broken down by country, and I think the default is total cases. What's amazing, the default sort order, is total cases. Let me check and see if you guys have asked. Nope, no questions have come in yet. So if you got questions as I'm going, please, take a second to go ahead and post them, and I'll keep checking back, and be happy to answer any of your questions. So one thing that's really encouraging, I love this stat from China. New cases has practically fallen off. That's great. Now, China's gone to some extremes. I know that people in Wuhan have actually been literally locked in their apartments, not allowed to leave. It's been a mandatory isolation. And, you know, it sounds kind of militaristic and maybe even a little scary because you got the military, you know, government cracking down, and you got this crazy virus, and it can make people become anxious and afraid. Totally get it. I would be afraid too, but I believe that they're now coming out of the woods. They'll probably continue their lockdown for the next, I don't know, 2 to 3 weeks, and then that will have basically stopped the spread of the virus. Their new cases was going crazy for a long time. And if we open this in another window, let me make sure that it opened. Yep. For you guys to be able to see it, we can look at the specific stats on China. And notice that this curve really matches the world trend in the beginning, because almost all the cases were in China. But the greatest encouraging thing is, so their peak in China, I think is this 58,016 on February the 17th, when we saw the world peak was like 58,747. And ever since then, it's just continued to decline. Yeah, now they're down to 12. I saw this, I guess, 3 or 4 days ago when it was at 16. So it's continued to drop to 12, which just means fewer people are becoming infected versus those who are recovering. Again, you'll notice the same exact recovery rate, that it seems like the majority of the people that have a closed case are dying, or not a majority, sorry, it's less than 50%, but a large number, 43%, were dying in the beginning. But again, that's just because they weren't measuring all the cases. And it wasn't until they started measuring all the cases that you get more accurate numbers like this. So 95% survivability rate. They got a total cases chart. Another one is new cases by day. I think this spike of 14,000 is when they just changed their testing. But again, this kind of follows that active cases. It peaks up, and then they figured out how to do a different test. So some of these numbers aren't going to be 100% accurate, but you notice that like it totally falls off. There's the active cases again. And number of deaths, again, it follows that same curve. You know, it built up for a while. They got it under control. Now it's just about falling off. So the one thing that I really want to call out on this is that from the beginning, which is 500, to their peak, which is 58,000, again, that's January 22nd to February 17. Again, that's almost 4 weeks. It's a little bit more than 3 weeks before they got it under control. Why is that important? Because I believe that as countries, as the coronavirus enters into countries, if you can find their starting point and find like where it starts to take off, like it really started going from 500 to 700 to 1,200. So it more than doubled in 2 days, as an example. That's when it really started taking off, that it's about a 3-week peak. Now, that peak is determined by isolation. If it takes 3 weeks to hit the peak, or if it took 3 weeks to hit the peak in China, if we self-isolate faster in the countries that have it today, like where I am in the US, we can actually shorten that 3 weeks down. So we can do better than what we see out of China, but I'm just using the Chinese 3-week before the government completely had it under control and got it to come down as a measurement for us. Let me check and see if you guys have any questions. Oh, hey, Matt Crump popping in to say hello. What's up, buddy? Haven't seen you for a long time. I need to find out, Matt, how you're doing. If you got a minute, you want to hop on, I would love to have you. Shell's gone for the day. For those that are watching, you may remember Matt came on early in the show. Maybe that was in December. I can't remember. He and I have been pretty close. He's got some new developments with his cancer, and I'm really concerned and praying for you, brother. So I want you to take care of yourself. If you hop on and do an update, that it would be great. Appreciated. If you do hop on, try to send me a text, because if I'm not on this broadcast screen, I won't see you there. So, if you shoot me a text, my phone will light up and I can come over here and check. But thanks for dropping by, buddy. Hope that you are getting better. I'm praying for good news. All right. So, that's China. Again, I'm using China kind of as a case, as an example of this is what we can expect, depending on how much isolation we do. So if we come back to here and we look at the United States, we have 2,500 cases right now, 55 deaths. Again, if you look at the closed cases, our closed cases actually is really weird. I'm not 100% sure what to think about this. I have thought about it for quite some time. I think it goes back to reporting errors that we're just not reporting correctly. A 0 death rate in the beginning, I'm kind of expecting that, and 100% recovery rate in the beginning because we started testing early, and maybe that's why our numbers look so wonky. But it's just really weird. I think that maybe we had a group of deaths that happened in a very short period of time early on. But so this is within 2 weeks. Like we started this data starts tracking in February the 15th. 2 weeks later, maybe we had a spike of deaths. And then that's why all of a sudden it looks like the death rate's really high. If you could imagine going back to like the Chinese one, let me go back up to the top. Imagine that if we started reporting right when the deaths began to happen, we would have a curve that kind of looks like this. But we started reporting, I think, before we really had deaths. And so therefore, all of a sudden, it looks weird. It looks like everybody's recovering. Then suddenly it got a lot worse. And I don't think that's really true. I think that all of the sudden we had a number of deaths, and it really messed these numbers up. And I believe as we go forward to as we go forward, these numbers will continue to grow and the statistics will be changing and it'll normalize out and it will look a lot like this type of separation. So you almost have to kind of ignore our numbers in the beginning because they look so wild. All right, so when we look at active cases, this is the thing that we should really be paying attention to in the United States is our active cases. And remember, with China, it was like a three week from 500 to that 58,000. And if we look here, we've got 138, 200, 289. It's not growing that fast. Suddenly 400. So it seems like this shift from the 6th to the 7th is where ours starts taking off. And if we add 3 weeks to that, that means the end of March before I would expect to see the thing level out. Now, again, if we're ahead of the curve and people self-isolate, it's great. We're shutting down schools, canceling large meetings. Businesses are letting people work from home if at all possible. Like all of that's great. If I know it's going to be a crunch on our economy, it's going to be a tough time. But we can, if we don't do the isolation, imagine what's going to happen. Like if this virus just continues to go around, it will be, devastating. It'll be really bad. So I think this is actually, we can beat the 3 week thing. But for those of you that are watching the video, I put the link to the worldmeters.info/coronavirus in the comments. And except for if you're in the group, I'll add it at the end. And then you can just click on USA or whatever country you're in and go pay attention to active cases and take a look at them. Another one we can take a real quick look at, I know Italy has taken off. I think in Italy's case, it's been predominantly because there are so many people that are elderly, like they have a larger population. I think it's 25% of their population is older than 65. So their death rate is expected to be higher, and it really breaks my heart. It breaks my heart. It's rough. And their active cases, if we tried to plot like a 3 week curve out from them, you can see 455, 593, suddenly 800. And in 2 days, they went from 593 to over 1,000. So that's basically 2 days, it almost doubled. So maybe their 3-week period starts around February the 29th, which means their 3-week peak would be the middle of March. So maybe, hopefully, they are a week away. What's really great in Italy is they have self-imposed isolation, and the whole country seems to be on a lockdown. So that's encouraging. I'm hoping that they will be able to not, see this continue to rise. I'm very hopeful that they have caught it early enough that this is as bad as it gets. Some of the other countries, another statistic you may want to look at on this particular one is if you sort by total cases per 1 million population, this is how this number will tell you how much the virus has spread as a percentage, basically, into that population. So how devastating or how widespread in the population is that? Numbers that are higher, like 349, mean more people per 100, or in this case per million, are sick in Italy with this than the next one down, which is Norway at 198. Let's see where China is 56 people per 1 million, which is kind of interesting. China is densely populated. This makes me think that China got it under control really well early on. That 56 people per 1 million got infected, but they're very densely populated. So they must have done something really smart for it to not like really blow up and spread all over the country. Where is the USA in this one? So that's the UK. Here's the USA. Right now, we have 7.5 cases per 1 million. Now, I expect that number to go up because our cases are going to go up and our population is not going up, not that fast. So I do expect this number to go up, but it is still kind of hopeful that if we can catch this thing right now, that we have such a low number of cases. That's not even deaths, but low number of cases per million. I think our country, we're doing a census this year. I think right now it's estimated we're around 330 million total population of the United States, and only 7.5 out of every single million. So 7.5 times 330 basically is how many cases we have, which is going to be around 2,500. And hopefully we have curbed it, and this number will not continue to climb for us. All right. So these are the stats I pay attention to, especially the active cases. If I'll switch over and see if you guys. Okay, Matt Crump came back in. He's in the truck driving, and he's going to give an update today. Awesome, because I've been kind of bugging him and I didn't see him post one. So that's great. Love you too, buddy. Really, man, my heart's breaking. I'm hopeful that things will get better and that you'll have some good news. Oh, his son just got off the plane. So cool. He's picking up his kid at the airport. That's awesome. Thank you again for dropping by. All right. So back to, okay. So that's the stats that I pay attention to, and how I read them. Again, active is, let me drop that off. I think active cases is much more important as an indicator as to what's really going on. Whether it's growing or on the decline. I think that's the best number that you can read for wherever you are. All right, so some of the things that we're doing here, a little comedy for a moment, if I can find, I'll put it on here. So my wife, as many of you guys know, my wife is Chinese, and my wife naturally was paying attention to Wuhan, and she was, she can read all the Chinese news feeds. And just like we're seeing in the United States, there's legitimate numbers and legitimate news. And then there's, all the fear mongering. And there's even people, that they purposely say false things just to try to get people afraid. So my wife was like watching all that stuff, and she's been kind of overwhelmed. However, I have talked directly with my mother-in-law and my brother-in-law. They are in Beijing. They're not in Wuhan, thank God. And asked them, like, from their perspective, the things that they see, how bad is it? And it is that bad. So, sometimes you think, oh my goodness, people are just playing up on fear. The people in Wuhan are not really on lockdown. It's not really that many people that have died. All those kinds of things you kind of doubt. You think that people are just like hyping stuff up. But my in-laws have said, yes, it's really bad. And in the beginning, my in-laws were saying, oh, there's not really a problem here. It's not that big of a deal. But we in the West were panicking because it seemed like we were getting more legitimate news than they were. And their news, by the way, is controlled by the Chinese government. So there is that, the Chinese government always wants to make itself look good and make it look like it's under control. So that's the very first thing that it started doing. I think the tide changed. I watched when Beijing started enforcing, like police officers became the gateways basically to large public spaces like parks and stuff like that. And they would take people's temperature. And if you had a temperature, you were not allowed in. And Beijing, when Beijing started kind of locking down with that measure, I think the news began to change and the truth started coming more out. So in the beginning, even my in-laws were saying, oh, there's no problem, nothing to worry about. And I kind of thought, okay, well, they're there. So maybe this is all hype. But over time, I believe it was because the government was kind of suppressing some of the information. And I didn't know how to read those numbers, by the way, that we were just looking at. So I feel that we'll have much more authoritative view by looking at the numbers that all of the other countries publish. It actually looks like the Chinese numbers are or were and are legitimate. So I'm very concerned about it. So my wife, following all of this stuff, let me see if I can get this popped up. Yeah, get it ready for you guys. My wife's following all this stuff. And like every day when I go to the office, she's like, don't be in a meeting. Don't talk to people. She would fix me lunch. She usually fixes me lunch anyway, and I take it to work. But there'd be some days that she wouldn't fix lunch for me. And I'd go to the office and she'd be like, when you go out to eat, don't go to a place that has a lot of people. And she's just, super concerned and worried, which is it's natural. It's really sweet of her to be that way. So Friday, our company put out this thing that everybody had to be 1 meter apart, 3 feet apart, if you were in the same room together and all that kind of stuff. And it was just it was kind of this is serious. So I told her about it, which she had been telling me. She said the CDC said you need to stand 1 meter away from people and all that kind of stuff. And so she called me, and I have an auto response where I can just select to send her a text because I'm in can't answer the phone right now. So there's one that says I'm in a meeting. So I sent her that. She called. I sent her the instant response that I was in a meeting, and then so she replied back with this. And this is just, to me, hilarious. So this is a floor plan of our house, and we have our master bedroom down at the bottom. From your perspective, the bottom. Oh, actually, yeah. You will be viewing this, I think, the same way that I am. So it should be your bottom left. And at the master bedroom is at the end of a hall. It's that blue section down on the bottom left of the blue section. And that's a hallway that goes all the way up to my office that you see at the top of the sheet. And so she gave me the color blue, and she marked this as my zone that I can go from my office to the bedroom and, back and forth again. And then you'll notice there's a little doorway that enters into the living room, which is Yan's zone. That's my wife. And yeah, then she had this red boundary line in the living room, blocking her part from April, our daughter. So she's got her harp room. You'll notice the harp room is right on, we share a wall with the office. So sometimes you'll hear her playing the harp. That's why, because there's only one wall between us. And then, the front door is up there, the dining room and the kitchen. So like she's got this zone for April. By the way, April's bedroom is upstairs. So it's not on here. We're not making April sleep on the floor. And this is kind of half joking, but it was just so funny that my wife, I told her, hey, I'm in a meeting, and immediately she sends back this zone that basically said, whenever you come home, you're on quarantine. And so it was comical, but we are being very serious about it. We have reduced, starting last week, we reduced non-essential travel, going to stores and stuff like that. We would go at off times. Um, I had a couple of doctors, one doctor visit that I did go to, but I've had some that I didn't feel like were that essential. Even physical therapy for my knee, I've canceled all that just to stay home or go out as little as possible. My wife works in the school, so the schools have been shut down, which is good. So she and April have been home actually all week, even when I was still continuing to go out. Um, yes, we have the same problems here as everywhere else. It seems like I have no idea why, but everybody thinks that they're going to run out of toilet paper first. I'm I'm not really sure why. Yeah, I would think you'd want to stock up more on food. So I imagine toilet paper is going to flatten sales for like another month or 2 months while everybody um, uses all the toilet paper that they bought and don't need any more. Maybe it's because food could go bad a little bit faster. I really don't know. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me. But our current strategy, so keep this on the DL because it could just be us. But our current strategy is we're going to go for about a week or so before we need to go back out to the stores, and by then they should be restocked. So we'll go back out and we'll stock back up. And again, I think at that point we'll probably have another 2, maybe 3 weeks left before the quarantine type conditions should be lifted. So we are definitely restricting our activity. We're not going out. We're staying home, and that brings some opportunities for family. I'm not sure exactly how much my wife is serious about this about this zoning plan that she's got here. If she's really serious about it, then we'll just be texting. And by the way, she has implemented that. She's in the house and she'll just text me stuff. She won't like walk all the way down the hall and come to my office or whatever. But she's regretted, by the way, that on days when I've had to go to work, she's regretted that like that night we would sit on the couch together. She's afraid that I'm going to, get her or April sick. So she's very cautious in that respect. And who knows, maybe through contact I have coronavirus or whatever. It's a possibility. For us, me personally and my family, I think we may be at risk of having picked it up because I was out even, yesterday. Yan went to, I think it was Costco, and they were packed like 1 or 2 days ago. We may have it, but for the other thing, the statistic, I guess I didn't show you, but you can find it on there on those links, is that the risk of death is very low for people that are like under 65, I think it is. It's very low. So and most of the people, by the way, that they say, just like the flu, which I know some people have kind of worn that phrase out, but excuse me, just like the flu, you can you're more susceptible to having long-term problems or even death if you're already in a weakened immune system, or you have other conditions like heart issues or lung problems. All of us in our household, thankfully, are healthy, so we're okay. Feel good about that. I am concerned about other people that are either older because your immune system goes down over time, or that you already have, some kind of chronic condition. I know some friends, I was talking with one yesterday, and she pulled her kid out of school even before the school shut down because she has some mild asthma problems, and she did not want her child to go to school, pick something up, bring it home, and then she gets sick, and it really, put her into a tailspin. So I know that people that have more serious conditions or not 100% healthy should definitely be much more cautious. All right, so those are the things we're doing. I'm curious to hear what you guys are doing. It would be nice to hear if you have a funny story as well, that like, are you guys zoning off your house and having, even a quarantine in your house, like we are? I hope not, because it does make me feel a little funny, like I'm an infection, or like maybe I should go through some decom shower, or some kind of scrub down or something like that. But I would love to hear what you guys have. going on. So the third thing, and again, I really miss Shell not being here, because she could be adding in all kinds of commentary and telling what's going on. She's in New York. She's at a funeral, so I know that they're not 100% locked down where she is. I know some parts of New York, by the way, definitely are. I think one of the neighborhoods is on total imposed. They called in like the National Guard. They're on lockdown. It's really bad. Evidently, Shell is not in that particular section of New York, but it would be interesting to hear like what are all the things that are going on in New York, and what are the conditions like there. I think big metros are more than likely going to be the heaviest hit if they don't get ahead of it. Like Nashville is just, I don't know, about 20 miles up the road from where I live. And I would imagine Nashville is going to have some problems if they don't self-impose and kind of shut things down. And New York, Los Angeles, Chicago, places like that, Houston, I would be concerned about. So, all right, how can you take advantage of this in your business? We'll talk about this, and if no one else drops in, then I'll call it a day. Maybe, yeah, I'll just call it a day. Got other things I can go hop off and do as well. So the biggest thing is, keep your head, don't panic. Obviously, take advantage of telecommunications. So we've got the internet, you've got Zoom. I'm doing a live stream. There are so many technologies that are available to us for us to stay in contact with each other. So take advantage of them. People will be more likely to communicate online right now because they won't be at work or whatever. They'll be looking for distractions, so to speak. People that are doing like the side hustle business, they're trying to get their business started, and their office or their company or whatever has shut down. They're going to have more free time, so they're going to be focusing more on their own personal business. So if these are industries or sectors that you work with, that now's a great time to reach out to your audience and begin to connect with them, and get yourself in front of them and begin to engage with them, because they will be ready for you. They'll be ready in their own business to work on things and be focused. And if that's something you can help them do, now may be a great time for you. Along that same vein, there are going to be some industries that are going to be really hurt hard. And so like travel, vacation, these are going to like practically plummet. And it may even, I'm waiting for news commentary folks to come on and say that it's kind of like back to 9/11 conditions, where they shut down the airlines for a little while, but then even afterwards, people were afraid to get on planes. We may still have that in our economy for maybe the next 2 months. So I think the travel industry is going to take a hard hit. It may be hard to help those businesses work on it right now. But the great thing is, once we get through this, we're going to have to, I think schools will be extended some through the summer. But I think by the time we get to the summer and schools are ended, people are going to want to go on vacation and take a breath and feel like, oh, great, like we're back at life as normal. And we're going to see the vacation industry and the travel industry like super take off, I believe, in the summer, especially once school gets out. Now, there'll be some who they already have summer plans and they're still going to take them because, again, I think we should be peaking by the end of this month, early next month. And so the normal summer season, I think for people that don't have children, their summer plans are probably going to be totally okay. But those are going to be some hard hit industries. So if your ideal customer is in one of those industries, helping them take advantage of this time to plan, focus, to optimize things in their business, to work on their systems, figure out how they can scale, all of those things I think will be important right now, because it'll help their company become more lean and focused, so that when the industry starts to take back off again, they're really ready and prepared to take advantage of that time. and then in the late summer, or maybe even middle summer and on, if they're lean and ready, they'll really be able to take advantage of the market swing that's going to go back that way. For other businesses that are not going to be directly impacted by this, the next thing that you could do, if that's who your ideal customer base is for you to help your customers, those businesses, stay focused on how to take advantage of this time now that other people are idle. And this is definitely the thing that I'm working on. Is I'm actually picking up more clients who say it looks like my day job business or whatever the industry they're in is taking a break. So now it's time for me to like really focus on what I'm doing with my personal brand. And so I'm able to help them do that right now. As a matter of fact, one of the calls I had earlier today is what is leading right into this. So if you work in a similar vein, if some of your clients or your market space is being affected by this, you can help them shift into other markets that are totally not. And this is what I would be doing. This is what I'm doing with my business, and this is what I highly recommend for you to consider doing with yours. So I don't see any more comments, and really that's all I had. I've watched a number of people hop in and out. Thank you guys so much for coming, and especially I'm going to keep an eye out for Matt. You guys remember him from, I think it was back in December or January when he first came on. If you, besides praying for people with the coronavirus, if you want to pray for Matt and his brain cancer condition, I'm sure he would greatly appreciate that. And since there aren't any other questions or anything else coming in, and these are the things that I had on my mind today, I'm going to go ahead and check out and enjoy the rest of the day with the family. I hope you guys also do the same. Thanks. Bye-bye.